In any project, there's this constant invisible battle being waged just below the surface. Well, today, we're going to give you the tool to not just see that battle, but to actually win it. Let's dive into something called force field analysis. So, have you ever been there? You're on a project, it's got all this momentum, it's a brilliant idea, the team is great, and then it just hits a wall? It's so frustrating, right? And it's almost never just one single thing that goes wrong. The reality is, every single initiative is caught in this constant tug-of-war. On one side, you've got your driving forces. These are the things pushing your goal forward. And on the other, you've got the restraining forces, digging their heels in, trying to keep things exactly as they are. When those two sides are perfectly balanced, well, you get stuck. Nothing happens. And trying to navigate this unseen war completely blind, that is exactly why so many well-intentioned plans just fall apart. The guy who first really put this on the map was a brilliant social psychologist named Kurt Lewin, way back in the 1940s. He had this insight that any situation, whether it's in a company or just in society, isn't static. It's actually being actively held in place by this balance of opposing forces. So, the big question is, how do we actually see this battlefield? How do we manage these forces instead of just being a victim of them? Well, the tool for that is force field analysis. To put it simply, force field analysis, or FFA for short, is basically a framework for drawing a map of that battlefield. It gives you a systematic way to identify everything that's helping you and everything that's hurting you, giving you this incredibly clear, strategic picture of what's really going on. Remember that tug of war? The whole point of this analysis isn't just to watch the fight. It's to figure out exactly how to tip the scales in your favor and turn that frustrating stalemate into real, actual progress. And the beauty of this whole thing is that it's not some super complicated process. It's actually a pretty straightforward 5-step journey to getting absolute clarity on your situation. So here's the roadmap. First, you define the change you want to make. Super clear. Then you identify all the forces for and against it. After that, and this is the really important part, you score their strength. Once you see the balance of power, you can build a laser-focused strategy to win. Let's walk through it. Okay, step 2 is all about brainstorming. Your driving forces are like the tailwinds pushing you forward. Things like awesome new tech, clear customer demand, or major cost savings. And your restraining forces, those are the headwinds, the fear of the unknown, high upfront costs, or that classic, but we've always done it this way. Now, this next step is what takes this from just a simple pros and cons list and turns it into a powerful strategic tool. You assign a score to every single force, usually on a scale from 1 for pretty weak to 5 for really, really strong. This puts numbers to the battlefield and shows you which forces are the heavy hitters. The rule of engagement here is super simple. For your change to even have a fighting chance, the total score of all your driving forces has to be bigger than the total score of all your restraining forces. It gives you a clear, data-driven go or no-go signal right up front. All right, enough with the theory. Let's actually put this tool to work and see how it plays out with a real-world kind of example. Okay, so imagine a company is thinking about implementing a new AI chatbot for customer service. On the driving side, the positives, they've got faster customer response times. That's a huge one, a 5, and significant cost reduction, a solid 4. But on the restraining side, they're facing some serious employee resistance, also a 4. And they've got a lack of technical expertise, which is a 3. So, let's do the quick math. We add up all the positives, all the forces driving this change forward, and we get a total strength of 16. And now for the other side of the equation, we sum up all the restraining forces, the things pushing back, and we find their combined strength is a 12. And boom, here's our insight. With a score of 16 to 12, the project definitely looks viable. But the analysis also gives us a huge, flashing warning sign. Those high-scoring restraining forces, that employee resistance and the lack of expertise, they have to be managed. If they're ignored, they could absolutely derail the whole thing. You see the benefits here, right? They're huge. This whole process forces you to be objective. It pinpoints the exact obstacles you need to tackle. And it gets your whole team on the same page, focused on where to spend your limited time and energy. So, this brings us to the final and, honestly, the most strategic part of the whole process. You know the score, you can see the battlefield. Now, how do you actually guarantee a win? Okay, get ready for the most important strategic insight of this whole thing, and this comes directly from Lewin's original work. Our gut instinct is always to just push harder, right? To add more driving forces. But what he discovered is that the smarter, more effective strategy is to focus on removing the restraining forces. Just think about it for a second. If you just push harder in that tug of war, what happens? The other team just digs in and pulls harder back. You're just increasing tension, and you might even make their resistance stronger. But what if you could convince some of their team to just let go of the rope? You remove the obstacles, and suddenly your existing driving forces can pull you to victory way, way more easily. And that, right there, is the real power of this analysis. It doesn't just show you the path forward, it shows you how to clear it. So the next time your big project starts to stall, don't just ask yourself, how can we push harder? Instead, ask, what's the one obstacle we can remove first?